Hi guys, good evening. Welcome to my podcast W5. Wow Woman Winning Wonderful World. The top 10% of Indian population holds 77% of total national wealth. 73% of the wealth generated went to the richest 1%, while 67 million Indian who comprise the poorest half of the population saw only a 1% increase in their wealth. There are 119 billionaires in India. Inequality widens when it comes to wealth in India. The bottom 50% of the household owns almost nothing. The middle class is also relatively poor, owning 29.5% of the total wealth as compared with top 10%, and 1% who hold 65% and 33% of the total wealth respectively. While the top 1% has largely benefited from economic reforms, growth among low and middle income group has been relatively slow, and poverty persists, and it cannot be denied. While there is a class which gets affected by Nifty, Sensex, hike in repo rate, recently 2 days back, Governor Shakti Kanta Das declared rise in rate of 0.4% to existing 4%. That is, current rate will become 4.4%. So if we say it is 0.4, it is wrong, because the existing 4% increases 10%, a big rise. But we follow world economy, so it has to be there, is explanation from high level community. So when such discussions are going on one hand, there is a class of people in India who are unaware of all these and are striving and struggling for daily meals, need helping hand. And remember, helping hand to these are not given by government also, because needy hardly gets anything, and dessert is offered to one who has had his meal, is bitter truth, but truth. In spite of all odds, देवाला प्रत्येकाची काळजी, त्यामुळे तो काही हात राखीव ठेवतो, त्या हातांना बळ देतो आणि ते इतर लोकांना बळकट करतात. सुंदर आयुष्य सहज घडत नसतं, तर ते जाणीवपूर्वक घडवावं लागतं. ते म्हणजे प्रार्थनेतून, माणुसकीतून, प्रेमातून, त्यागातून आणि सर्वात महत्त्वाचे म्हणजे कृतीतून घडत असतं. आणि अशाच कृतीतून यशोगाथा तयार केली आहे माझ्या आजच्या वा वुमनने. चेतना, गाला, सिन्हा, मन देशी. A big meaning behind these two words. Founding India's first bank for women by women, she is turning them into entrepreneur with small collateral free loans. Chetna, Gala, Sinha, a crusader and feminist, believes in the power of microfinance to turn the fate of a woman and her village around. Much akin to her idol Jai Prakash Narayan's brand of dissent, Chetna, Gala, Sinha's exponential activism also aimed at total revolution, but one that reflects in the quality of life of each of its foot shoulders. Therefore, this khadi-clad crusader with her signature bindi tailored her Mann Desshi mahila sahkari bank scheme to meet the needs of everyone, from the disgruntled woman whose husband broke her piggy bank to that of vegetable vendor who needed umbrellas to survive the scathing heat. And her impassioned speeches in her unmistakably fervent and childlike manner, which are about bringing vocational and economic agency to over 110,000 rural women, are narrated through the stories of Nandini Lohar, a class 6 dropout who now sells framed posters, or Nakusha, an illiterate abandoned girl who now owns agricultural land, or even Shamshad Tamboli, once a paltry construction worker in Mumbai who now runs a sewing school. According to Chetna, I would dream about total revolution and how people should seize power when my activism was centered in cities such as Mumbai. But the more time she spent in Maswad, the more she realized that meaningful change came down to rudimentary individual issues such as not having toilets. What was required were smaller daily interventions. She was raised in Mumbai's Nal Bazar in the upper story of one of those quintessential neo-Gothic structure which also housed the Kachhi business family's wholesale kirana shop. Sinha studied commerce at the Lala Lajpat Rai College of Commerce and Economics and completed her master's in economics from Mumbai University. When the emergency was declared between 1975 and 1977, Sinha was 17. Jai Prakash Narayan, the face of the class struggle in the country, was urging students to shed apathy and march against the powers that be. At Mumbai University, Sinha joined Chhatra Yuva Sangharsh Vahini, which was sympathetic to this call, driven by curiosity and a growing desire to be a more consequential citizen. It was not long before the daily motions of JP movement shaped her political person. By the time she was 22, she had traversed through an impressive cross-section of the country, as far as the divergent Patna and Gaya in the east and the powerhouse New Delhi in the north. Her family was proud and scared at the same time. When she was 23, she spent 13 days in Yerwada jail for campaigning to change the name of Marathwada University to Ambedkar University. She wrote a letter to her father from jail stating why she had not been home in 13 days and about all books she was reading. Receiving a document with Yerwada stamp would have been shocking for him, but he never asked her to pull out. They did worry about her marriage, but they never imposed restrictions. More importantly, because they knew that she would never listen. They always thought she was a headstrong feminist. The same year, she was summoned to the drought-prone village of Maswad in Maharashtra, Satara district. An encounter with a certain local leader, Vijay Sinha, who was striving to create better opportunities for youngsters who would otherwise migrate, ushered in the next big chapter in her life. She saw him organizing thousands of people for protest, how powerful and passionate he was too, and so she fell in love with him. It was 1986-87 and she was teaching intermittently at the SNDT Women's University while still being a prominent pillar of the JP movement when she and Vijay decided to join forces and tie the knot. She had decided to stay in Mumbai. She was not sure if village life was for her. Luckily, she not being of the kind of overthink, she jumps into things very passionately. She figured she can make it with Vijay. The young couple initially went the distance, but it was not long before nearly 8-hour-long commute just to see each other got onerous. When she was sitting at the bus stop with no means of communication and the buses would be late by hours, she would get impatient. So she finally decided to shift base to Maswad. Vijay's family was a farmer, and the young wife arrived prepared for a diametric shift in her way of life and her line of work. The couple borrowed money to grow onions on their 5-acre farm, but the vegetable prices plummeted and the two failed to recover even their cost. While she had another vocation to fall back on, Sinha could not help but wonder about the plight of those around her who didn't and had everything riding on the earnings from the produce. The next incident came as final straw. She had approached several nationalized banks in nearby towns for a loan to procure goats. She realized how difficult it was to be a farmer. Your liquidity is severely impaired. When you are from a business family, you are turning away agents desperate to sell you loans by dozen. But here, where finances are actually required genuinely, needy applicants are turned away. Sinha worked on research projects on rural issues for Australian Aid and Norwegian Agency for the Development Cooperation. But all along, she felt a constant urge to do something for the villagers more, so the woman who had little financial or social agency. Sinha began organizing women for smaller projects such as demanding toilets or power. Her house had become somewhat a center where women could come to vent. Yet, not a single person ever asked for money directly. That's not how they think. They simply want opportunity. Inspired by Ila Bhatt Seva model of self-help group SHG, Sinha urged the women of Maswad and the neighboring towns and villages to also organize themselves into the similar format and started to General Credit Cooperative Society. Women would borrow from the pool to buy goats and buffaloes mainly and would pay it back through weekly installment and unfaltering so, lest they ousted from this support system. In 1995, Bhatt herself, impressed with Sinha's work in Maswad, suggested that she would establish a cooperative bank categorically to meet the special needs of women. She knew she had to. She wanted it to be as formalized as possible because it was a financial institution. However, the first blow came when the ambitious proposal made by the member of 550 SHG self-help group rounded up by Sinha was turned away right off the bat based on one small technicality. It was rejected because most of the women stakeholders were illiterate. Disheartened but determined not to go down with a fight, Sinha resolved to return with that box checked. In 3 months, the woman came back not only with the skills to read and write, but also made spot mathematical calculations without a calculator. Really a big change she brought in her life, in their life, and established the bank. In February 1997, with 840 members, all women contributing a share capital of rupees 6 lakh and the necessary paperwork and approvals in place, they procured their license from RBI, Reserve Bank of India. Today, the Mann Desshi Bank with 9 branches has a working capital of more than rupees 1.5 billion. They lend rupees 670 million annually and will become a rupees 1 billion bank this March. Chetna quotes proudly with Chaitanya filled in her. This success stands in stark contrast to the inaugural day. Pramila Dandavate, prominent socialist leader, was to come down for the inauguration. This was one of the largest events the village had seen. A huge stage was set, but on the previous night, a local leader drunk on wine went around proclaiming, "आता या बायकांचं नावाने बोंबला," spewing poison like, "This girl has come from Mumbai and she will run away with everyone's money," and so on. The husbands forbade their wives from attending the event, but she went on her two-wheelers door to door to convince them. The next day, she was surprised to see that almost 5,000 women attended the launch unescorted by men. They proudly proclaimed that they will hold shares of bank. For the first 5 years, the women willingly forwent dividends so that the bank had stronger reserves for emergencies. What a good vision. That's the reason the organization has been able to build on its own. It's all women savings and women generated capital. She says this, her eyes welling up. Day 0 itself granted her perhaps her most important learning. When someone is aggressively against a cause you are campaigning, you gather strength and fight them. But if someone is laughing at you and being patronizing, how do you react? At the launch, she saw how to counter it. She learned that she must use fanfare, flamboyance. It gives the participants pride and dignity about associating with the cause. The Mann Desshi primarily started for saving, constantly adapted to local needs. They have to provide doorstep banking because women still refuse to come to the bank. She ordered 5,000 colorful boxes with Mickey Mouse print, which were to be collected by a field officer from the houses when they fill up. The money would then be transferred to the saving accounts. In 8 days, a woman came with a broken box asking, "Whose stupid idea was this?" Her husband broke that box and took away the money. She understood more than convenience, women needed complete control. They didn't speak of needing money, they spoke of wealth generation. They immediately began working on a microcredit product, that is, a mechanism to provide small loans to poor, unemployed women who do not qualify for traditional credit. She listened closely to their needs. Street vendors who would sell in the scorching sun every day and then get sick, especially in summers, lose out on their working days, became her main initial client, and she granted them loans for umbrellas. She would customize the loan for goats, chickens, and cows. To boost efficiency, the bank was computerized at the get-go. It cost her rupees 2 lakh, but she wanted the bank to be as modern as any other. Within 3 years, the bank recovered its original overhead. Initially, she wanted to hire staff from larger banks in cities, but no one was willing to move to the village. So, she started looking inward and discovered immense promise. After deploying them to training camps organized by local government agencies, she developed a highly competent, completely local staff, which also eliminated the possibility of attrition. Hisab, Hunar, or Himmat became the war cry as she registered the Mann Desshi Foundation for Women to advance their societal status through education, governance, or business. Since the 73rd Amendment had been implemented, she started training women for political line of fire. Sinha readied the first woman sarpanch to not only govern effectively but also stand up to her own husband, who she had anticipated would demand to be seated in her sarpanch chair during proceedings. The foundation decided to take all its solution to the doorstep, which inspired the business school on wheels. The state-of-the-art Airbus travels with computers and micro ATMs and has the provisions to not only impart direct vocational skills such as screen printing, chutney making, bag making, but also Deshi MBA, confidence building, financial literacy, spoken English, and basic computer skills are taught, and any woman can join any day. 500,000 women have been trained through this initiative across Silvassa, Hubli, Dharwad, Chiplun, Pune, Nasik, Satara, and Kolhapur. This archetypal Indian ingenuity was recognized alongside Harvard Business School and Fuqua School of Business in a Financial Times ranking of the best B schools in the world. Global plaudits stream in for unapologetically local solution, bringing Sinha closer to her ultimate goal of building an all-woman bank at the global level someday. Really a great work. Today's story is little big, but this big work, which is so big, it is very difficult to just comprise it and just to curtail it. So therefore, story is story, but she has written her own story, paved her own way in spite of struggle, in spite of striving hard, but ultimately she is successful, because successful and success is byproduct of hard work and attitude. I salute work of this wow woman. Meet you tomorrow with next wow woman. Till then, keep smiling, be happy. Bye bye.